the changes in India's military capabilities is not without its challenges, especially with regards to three armed services securing their required needs in a timely manner. At a time when the military confrontation with China and eastern Ladakh shows no signs of de-escalation, and the China-Pakistan collusion is also extending from the land borders to the high seas, the Indian armed forces received around 63,000 crore, less than what they demanded for military modernization in this year's budget. Now, Parliamentary Panel on Defence has expressed concerns over the shortfall and has suggested that adequate budgetary allocations must be made available to the armed forces. It also said that the Defence Ministry should not make any more reductions in the coming years. Let's try and understand this further with our guests who are joining us this evening. We have General VP Malik, former Army Chief, live with us. Maroof Raza, Group Consulting Editor, Times Network, also joining us on the broadcast. Good evening to both of you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate this evening. General Malik, I want to begin the discussion with you. How concerned are you about the point that has been raised by Parliamentary Panel on Defence, major fund shortfalls for military modernization at a time when tensions between India and China continue? We know the relationship between India and Pakistan isn't too good either.
Good evening to you, and thank you for asking me to come on your panel. You asked me how concerned. I'm very concerned. You have yourself described the kind of situation that we are facing on our northern borders as well as on the western borders. And for the last few years now, whatever the funds are being projected by the Ministry of Defense, we are getting less and less. Now, it has several impacts on this. First, of course, the most important is that we have to redo the complete planning that we have been doing. And our plans are not for 1 year, these plans are for 5 years. So the whole planning has to be revised and redone again. The second thing, which is most disconcerting to me, is that, we are not getting adequate money for our capital expenditure. Out of this lot that is, we are getting this money, which is much less than what is being projected. Can you imagine that we are getting only 27% for new equipment, which means tanks, which means ships, which means aircraft, which means construction work. And out of this budget, which is allocated, 73% of it goes into revenue, which means pay allowances, pension, and maintaining whatever little other equipment that we have got. So it is also impacting our indigenization. We say Atmanirbharta, but when there is no money to procure new equipment, how do we proceed with Atmanirbharta, defense industry? You ask any private defense industrialist, he says, well, if you have no money, why are you trying to get us to invest so much money in the defense industry? So it has a very severe impact, and I'm so glad that the parliamentary body has now brought it to the notice. And I do hope that the whole public realizes the adverse impact it is having on the national security, particularly on the modernization of armed forces, which I think is something which is extremely important under the present circumstances.
The question now is, Maroof Raza, that why? What is the reason behind this shortfall? And as General Malik explained to us that, we just get 27% for new equipment at a time when our focus is to make India Atmanirbhar. For example, yesterday we got this story on the show wherein we learned that now, some jets that Russia used to give us, or we used to import from Russia, will be designed in Russia but made in India. Of course, the existing situation in Russia was also taken into account before this decision was taken. But in a scenario like this, considering what's happening around the world, can we really afford to, not focus on modernization as far as our military equipments are concerned?
Well, Heena, thanks for inviting me on the show, particularly with the very distinguished General Malik, and I'm honored to be with him on the show. This subject has been a perennial subject of concern amongst military men and people who look at national security issues. But there are no easy answers. While General Malik has spelled out, the areas where there are constant concerns amongst the service establishment, he knows it best because he's been a chief. He's looked at defense budgeting in great detail. But let me give you both sides of the story. Yes, we are on the face of it spending less than the much desired figure of even 2% of GDP on our armed forces and defense establishment. We are right now somewhere close to about 1.31% or thereabouts. Now, this is really in the world of today unacceptable because if you're seeing the plight of European nations who are now trembling with the Russian incursions in Ukraine, they're looking to America to bail them out. President Trump, for all his mercurial comments and activities, one of the things he told the Europeans that you cannot have your safety and security guaranteed unless you spend at least 2% of your GDP on defense. Most European countries don't, with the exception, I think, of Britain and one other. Now, the point is that in our case, there are explanations that are being given by the government every year that while, as General Malik brought out, the capital outlay, which is about 26-27% of the total budgetary outlay, that is essentially for what you need to buy. So whenever you have it all sorted out, your wish list duly approved, all the trials done, and you're ready to buy something which is you find extremely critical, the government will provide funds. It has been the case in the past also. So it's not that you make a wish list and you're told, okay, wait for the next budgetary year. I'm sorry, you can get bombed out by your adversary, but we don't have the money. I think push comes to shove, the government, any government of the day, will have to provide, as you saw with the Chinese incursions. The Raksha Mantri rushed off to Russia, picked up new MiG-29s, picked up some more new equipment. So in a crisis, yes. The second thing where there is a problem, that the government has merged the pay and the pension together. Now what happens is that in the pay and the pension, earlier the revenue expenditure was only the pay element, which was what you paid the three services, and ours are manpower intensive services because we have huge borders and we have massive internal commitments. J&K is the case in point. So what happens is, ideally in a budget of say 5,500 crores, which is what roughly the government has approved now, as against the Defense Ministry's expectation of 7,00,000 crores, the pay element is ordinarily 2.35 lakh crores. Now, if you add the pension to that, then what happens? 50% more of the pay element is the pension element. So on face of it, the government says, we are giving you a 13-14% rise every year based on the government's overall expenditure plan for the year in the country. But realistically, the services are not getting that money in their hand because the pension should not be clubbed with the pay. The other aspect is capital expenditure. That means, helicopters, tanks, missiles, etc. The problem is that it takes very long, and General Malik will bear me out on that, for the services to be able to approve and buy something. The Rafale controversy is the case in point. What should have otherwise taken 5-6 years takes 17, 18 years. So the money keeps getting carried over and doesn't get used. So the government's argument is that you take a call on what you want to buy, we will provide you the funds. So it's a two-sided coin. It's not straightforward. But the bottom line is that you want to be secure, you want to be strong, and you want to deal with the two-front threat of China and Pakistan, then you have to spend more.
Absolutely. In fact, General Malik, when the budget announcement was made on 1st of February 2022, we did see an increase in defense budget, but unfortunately, it's not there on the ground. And that is something that this parliamentary panel has also raised. If the aim is securing India and pursuing self-reliance or Atmanirbharta, then why should, this not be a priority? security, why less money for modernization? Is it because of lack of funds because of COVID, or do you think this has been the case always?
I must tell you that as a percentage of GDP, also as a percentage of the total government expenditure, the money allocated to the defense services has been going down in the last few years. So while we are increasing the money for the government expenditure, but in that government expenditure, the amount which is being given to the defense ministry is coming down. That's one point that I want to make. The other thing is that last year, we asked for an extra increase, which was given subsequently. But then, you have to go through the whole process because you have to go back to the parliament and get the extra sanction, and that is time consuming. I'll come to this other, this aspect is also that the committee has been, in fact, asking for non-lapsable fund, which is still under consideration for last so many years. The committee wanted, and the services also want, that there should be about 25,000 crores, a little more, should be given as a non-lapsable fund so that can carry forward from one year to the other year. We don't have to keep on going back to the parliament again and again. The other thing I want to bring out to you is that today, when we look at the equipment held by the army, we should be holding 33% vintage, 33% current, and 33% state of the art. But what exists in our armory today is 68% vintage, 24% current, and only 8% state of the art. I thought I must mention to you, this is the state of our equipment today. So it does require additional funds. There is absolutely no way out. And the government has to pay more attention to this. Otherwise, our national security is going to suffer time and again. And I also must point out to you that China today is spending 3.5 times more money on its defense than we are doing. I'm not saying that we can compete with China, but we should also look at it that our adversary, what are they doing about it? They are spending 3.5 times more money on defense than we are doing.
Well, that's an important point that you've raised, and the state of our equipment today is something that also needs to be highlighted at a time when the military confrontation with China and Eastern Ladakh is showing no signs of de-escalation, and with what's really happening around the world, the geopolitical tension that's continuing. And I would like to thank both my guests. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate and helping us understand the problem here. And we really hope that as Parliamentary Panel has now expressed concern over the shortfall, something will be done by Ministry of Finance, by the Government of India, so that there is no such problem again. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate this evening.